This is VOA News. Via remote, I'm Marissa Melton. U.S. President Joe Biden meets with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin for the first time in Geneva Wednesday, amid deteriorating relations between the U.S. and Russia. The meeting takes place in the final hours of Biden's first trip abroad as president, during which he's already attended the 47th G7 summit in the English town of Carbis Bay, as well as talks with NATO and EU leaders in Brussels. The White House said Saturday that Biden would appear alone at a post-summit news conference, unlike former President Donald Trump, who addressed reporters together with Putin following their 2018 summit in Helsinki. A White House official said Saturday that a solo press conference is useful for clearly communicating the meeting's content to reporters, including topics of contention. In April, Biden expelled 10 Russian diplomats and imposed new sanctions on 6 Russian technology companies that provide support to the cyber program run by Putin's intelligence services that have been linked to the hacking of the SolarWinds information technology company. In May, 2 key U.S. businesses, Colonial Pipeline, which transports fuel in the southeastern U.S., and the JBS Meat Production Company were targeted in cyber attacks believed to have originated in Russia. Both Colonial and JBS paid millions of dollars in ransom demands. Some of that was recovered from the Colonial ransom. The White House also said it expects the Biden-Putin meeting to be candid and straightforward, and that Biden will bring up the ransomware attacks originating in Russia, Kremlin's aggression toward Ukraine, the imprisonment of dissidents, and other issues. Putin has rejected U.S. claims that Moscow and Russian hackers are carrying out debilitating cyber attacks on American companies and government agencies. This is VOA News. President Biden on Tuesday announced his nominees for ambassadors to Israel, Mexico, and NATO as he moves to strengthen U.S. alliances in tough regions. Among a slate of names announced by the White House on Tuesday were Thomas Nides, Morgan Stanley vice chairman, who served as Deputy Secretary of State under former President Barack Obama. He will serve as the ambassador to Israel. Biden also picked Ken Salazar, a former U.S. Senator from Colorado and Interior Secretary, as his ambassador to Mexico. And security expert Julianne Smith has been nominated to be the ambassador to NATO, a key Western bulwark against Russia. The European Union concluded Tuesday a meeting that included the United States by agreeing to address climate change, combat the coronavirus pandemic, and strive for a more peaceful world. The leaders of the countries, representing more than 780 million people, released a statement Tuesday after sessions with U.S. President Joe Biden. Biden started his trip in Britain, where he attended a G7 meeting. And in his meetings, he's striven to show European nations that the United States is fully re-engaged as their ally. The Delta variant of the COVID-19 virus is more infectious and more virulent than the Alpha variant first identified in the United Kingdom. This is according to new research. The good news is the vaccines still work against it, though somewhat less well. The Delta variant was first identified in India. It's likely responsible for that country's explosive outbreak, which has set grim world records for the most deaths per day of any country. When it spread to the UK, it overtook the fast-spreading Alpha variant in a matter of weeks. The Delta now causes 90% of new infections in the UK. The variant also causes more serious cases of COVID-19. In a study published Monday in the Lancet Medical Journal, scientists found that patients infected with Delta were 85% more likely to be hospitalized than they would have been if infected with Alpha. Iraq announced over the weekend that it had excavated a mass grave containing the remains of more than 100 people killed by the Islamic State terrorists in Badoush prison, located in the northwest of Iraq's second largest city, Mosul. Officials believe the remains belong to Shiite prisoners executed by the group in 2014. The Sunni extremist massacred more than 600 people in that facility. You can find more on this and all the stories that we're covering at our website, voanews.com. You can also download our app to your mobile device. Via remote, I'm Marissa Melton, VOA News.
This is VOA News via remote. I'm Tommy McNeil. A spokesman for Russian President Vladimir Putin cautioned that Putin's talks with U.S. President Joe Biden this morning will not be easy or likely yield any breakthroughs. Putin's spokesman Dmitry Peskov said a few hours before today's Russia-U.S. summit in Geneva that topics on the broad agenda are mostly problematic. And not this day cannot become historic, and we should not expect any breakthroughs. The situation is too difficult in Russian-American relations. But he says the two presidents agreeing to meet and speak openly about the problems is already an achievement. Peskov says the issues Russia wants to discuss includes arms control, cooperation in regional conflicts, the coronavirus pandemic, and climate change. Israeli aircraft have carried out a series of airstrikes at militant sites in the Gaza Strip. It's the first such raid since a shaky ceasefire ended the war with Hamas militants last month. The Israeli airstrikes targeted facilities used by Hamas for meetings to plan attacks. That's according to the military, blaming the militant group for any act of violence emanating from Gaza. There were no immediate reports of casualties. On Tuesday, hundreds of Israeli ultra-nationalists, some chanting death to Arabs, paraded in East Jerusalem in a show of force that threatened to spark renewed violence. The outgoing UN Special Envoy for Yemen has expressed deep regret to the Security Council that he failed to mediate a ceasefire and peace talks between Yemen's warring parties during the past 3 years. But Martin Griffiths said Tuesday he hopes the diplomatic efforts, especially by Oman, will bear fruit, despite painting a bleak picture of the Arab world's poorest country in its final briefing to the Council. This is VOA News. In consecutive visits this month, U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris and Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas have conveyed to the most important U.S. partner that the Biden administration is taking a more nuanced approach to immigration than its predecessor, but still asking what more Mexico can do. Mayorkas said Tuesday at the conclusion of 2 days of high-level meetings that we have challenged one another with respect to what more can each of us do to address the level of irregular migration that has persisted for several months. In May, encounters with migrants at the U.S.-Mexico border inched up from April to more than 180,000. A top Army leader is defending the Pentagon's response to the January 6th insurrection at the U.S. Capitol. Lieutenant General Walter Piet told a House panel Tuesday that the National Guard was delayed for hours because it had only properly prepared for the deployment. Piet also says that senior military leaders had determined beforehand that there was no role for the U.S. military in determining the outcome of an American election. He is the director of the Army staff. The January 6 rioters were supporters of former President Donald Trump and stormed the building in order to stop the certification of now President Joe Biden's victory. The 3 members of the first crew to be sent to China's new space station say they're eager to work. They spoke to reporters a day before their scheduled launch to the station on Thursday morning. Once they get there, they'll start making their home for the next 3 months habitable, setting up testing and experiments and preparing for a series of spacewalks. The station was launched in April, and this mission is one of several to expand and supply the station and send up crew. The mission commander is making his 3rd trip into space. Another conducted China's first spacewalk, and a 3rd astronaut is making his first space flight. The U.S. death toll from COVID-19 now exceeds 600,000, even as the vaccination drive has slashed daily cases and deaths and allowed the country to emerge from the gloom. And that is according to the toll recorded by Johns Hopkins University. The number of lives lost is greater than the population of the cities of Baltimore and Milwaukee. And Hungarian lawmakers approved legislation that prohibits sharing with minors any content that portrays or promotes homosexuality or sex reassignment. The National Assembly passed the bill Tuesday in a 157-1 vote. There's more at voanews.com. Via remote, I'm Tommy McNeil, VOA News.